It's time to say goodbye to President Donald Trump. I remember where I was 4 years ago when he won. I was working for Hillary Clinton, and I remember the gravity of the situation not fully sinking in. I was riding on a high from just a few days earlier when the Cubs won the World Series. I was naively optimistic for 12 hours, and then he insisted that the people who were protesting against him were being paid, and I realized that's how the next 4 years were going to go. From the start of his presidency to the very end, Trump surfed from crisis to crisis, using each crisis to bury the previous one. That's a criticism a lot of historians give President Kennedy. When you look at President Kennedy's crises, a few of them were created by himself, like the Bay of Pigs, but a lot of them seemed out of his control. When you look at Trump's crises, scandals, and general negative attention, outside of COVID-19, nearly all of them were created by himself. Even the crises that were out of his control, he went out of the way to make much worse. The first instance would be the Sean Spicer Inauguration press conference. Trump wasn't even president for more than 24 hours before he had his own press secretary ruin his own credibility over a crowd size. Trump's crowd was clearly not bigger than Obama's crowd, and any rational person would see that and understand why Obama had a larger crowd. Who cares how big of a crowd your inauguration had? It's on January 20th, and it's absolutely frigid outside, and no one wants to be there.
Photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
Sean Spicer never truly regained his credibility. There was the Muslim ban shortly after, which sparked protests around the United States and the world. It was a disaster, poorly worded, and the courts had a field day with it. Trump had to revoke it because the courts were destroying it. In addition to that, his administration made up a massacre to try to justify the ban.
Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, yesterday used false information to defend the president's executive order on immigration.
It's the 7 countries that were previously identified by President Obama as being high risk, as being states that either harbor, train, or export terrorism. These are nations very narrowly prescribed and also temporary.
Sure.
I bet there was very little coverage. I bet it's brand new information to people that President Obama had a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program after 2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre. Most people don't know that because it didn't get covered.
The Bowling Green massacre that Conway mentioned never happened. She was probably referring to the 2011 arrest of 2 Iraqi citizens living in Bowling Green, Kentucky. They are serving long prison terms for attempting to send weapons and money to al-Qaeda in Iraq. Both men also admitted attacking U.S. troops in Iraq. There was never an attack in Bowling Green. Conway's other claim that the Obama administration put a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program is also inaccurate. There was a pause in refugee processing and more extensive background checks. New screening procedures slowed down visa approvals significantly, but Iraqis still received visas every month.
Then, 3 days later, they released a list of 78 terror incidents they say the media didn't cover as justification for their Muslim ban. And on that list, they spelled attack wrong 27 times. And that was just in the first 7 days of his presidency. Those 7 days set the tone for the rest of his presidency. A presidency filled with lies, often lying about lies and lying about whether or not you lied about a lie. A presidency that was strung together every step of the way with Scotch tape. The most recent example of this is the TikTok ban. They wanted to ban it and they just kind of forgot about it, and now TikTok is in court asking if they're going to be banned still. Another example of this would be suing the states with ridiculous lawsuits to stop counting, and the Trump campaign lost all of these lawsuits. This was a presidency that was completely disorganized. Something that we shouldn't overlook is just how cruel Trump's presidency was. From separating kids at the border to ordering ICE to remove ovaries from detained women, the Muslim ban, renewing for-profit prisons, promoting and encouraging police brutality, to withholding coronavirus aid for states that didn't vote for him in 2016. He also tried to have a foreign country investigate his political opponent's kid in exchange for foreign aid, and then he got impeached over it. There is a wickedness, a cruelness inside of Trump that long ago corrupted him, and it corrupted the Republican Party as well. And thankfully, and hopefully, it won't be able to corrupt our country for much longer. The only thing I will miss about Trump is how funny he was, intentionally or unintentionally. I genuinely hate how funny he could be at times. Like the time he told a kid that Santa wasn't real.
How are you doing? How old are you, Coleman?
Thank you.
7, wow, that's pretty good, right? Is everything good? You doing well in school? That's great. What are you going to do for Christmas?
Hello, good evening.
Well, that's very good. Well, you just have a good time. Are you still a believer in Santa? Because at 7 it's marginal, right? Well, you just enjoy.
Or when he made a video after he got COVID and he said, "Hello, it's me, your favorite president," which is objectively a funny thing for the president of the United States to say.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president, and I'm standing in.
Or when Hillary Clinton was giving a play-by-play of what is happening right now in 2020, way back in 2016, and he interrupted her to argue that The Apprentice should have won an Emmy.
He lost the Iowa caucus. He lost the Wisconsin primary. He said the Republican primary was rigged against him. Then Trump University gets sued for fraud and racketeering. He claims the court system and the federal judge is rigged against him. There was even a time when he didn't get an Emmy for his TV program 3 years in a row, and he started tweeting that the Emmys were rigged against him.
Should have gotten it.
This is a mindset. This is how Donald thinks.
But all these moments will be remembered as a sideshow in what was an otherwise dark presidency. These laughs are in spite of all the damage he did to America, to individual people, to American lives, to America's status abroad, and to the world. He's a crimson stain on American decency. The damage he did may be irreparable. He has divided Americans to a point not seen since 1860. He has divided the world. One can only hope that he stays gone because America can't keep being brought to the brink by this one man. It's not sustainable. Good riddance. Joe Biden is the president America needs right now. Trump was always too big of a coward to tell the American people the truth, especially when it came to COVID. The American people didn't need to hear that it was a hoax and that everything was fine and the virus didn't matter. They needed to hear the truth. A lot of lives could have been saved by just hearing the truth. We don't have a president so they can tell us everything is perfect. We have a president so they can tell us the inconvenient truth. And Trump was always too big of a coward to do that. He will be remembered as one of the worst presidents in the modern era. Thank God it's over.